Hey everybody, it's your boy GMA Minister, the Anunnaki teacher. You guys gotta see this about the slave Bible. I'll be back.
It's known as a slave Bible, an instrument of terror that was used by British missionaries to control and manipulate slaves. Only 3 copies of this Bible exist. The one put on display in Washington is the only copy known in the United States of America. Anthony Schmidt, a curator at the museum and an expert in religion, said this Bible was published in 1807. It contains bits and pieces of the Holy Bible, but was tailored specifically for African slaves in the British West Indies, known today as the Caribbean. You've already learned today that the Bible has changed, and is indeed constantly changing, depending on interpretations. Certain books are removed, certain books are added. But the slave Bible takes this manipulation to a whole other level. The book wasn't just altered a little bit, it was completely changed, left in a state that people familiar with the Bible wouldn't be able to recognize. Anthony Schmidt said about 90% of the Old Testament was removed and about 50% of the New Testament. Books like Genesis were axed altogether. But what was the purpose? Even the Protestant Bible, with 7 books gone, has 1,189 chapters. The slave Bible only has 232. There are a few theories, none of them flattering to human beings. Most experts agree that farmers in the West Indies were not excited about Christian missionaries. Missionaries get a bad rap, but they did often work with enslaved Africans at plantations. Maybe they were misguided and maybe they were a little immoral, but the missionaries did try to educate enslaved people. Much of this education centered around the Bible. Plantation owners hated this because of certain biblical stories. They didn't want slaves reading about how Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, where they themselves had been slaves. Plantation owners viewed the Bible as bad for business. Slaves might be inspired to rebel, as the Israelites had in the Bible. The plantation owners couldn't stop the missionaries from educating the Africans. After all, they presented themselves as perfectly good Christians. So they thought up a scheme to change the Bible. Anything involving rebellion was taken out, while passages that could be considered pro-slavery were left inside. For example, this passage from Ephesians chapter 6, verse 5. Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters, according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in singleness of your heart, as unto Christ. These were the messages left inside Bibles, designed to brainwash slaves into thinking Jesus wanted them to be slaves. The dark realms of the apocalypse of Peter. 2,000 years ago, people were just as obsessed with the apocalypse as we are today. There's no better example of this grim obsession than the banned biblical book called The Apocalypse of Peter, also sometimes called The Revelation of Peter. It was a hugely popular piece of apocalyptic literature in the 2nd century.